I hate to turn on the television and see that there's a threat of violence or a lockdown, but we immediately reached out to the schools, and it was reassuring to see the response activities that they took there. Just what we would recommend on the protocols. One, they immediately contacted the police department, worked together with them on a thorough threat assessment to take a look at it and get as much information as they could before forming a plan. They did increase security. They did obviously tighten the access control, something you would do when there is a threat like that. But the most important thing is they did maintain the learning environment, which is very important on here. You have a somewhat vague threat. You do have to check it out. But they say it's a relatively minor disruption with the increased security around there, but the kids were still able to go to class and maintain their regular schedules, which is really good to see. This is a relatively new area using social networking sites where the threats were first observed, something we are trying to learn more about and trying to predict what will happen in the future. And even though it's vague and it comes over the social networking site, you still have to take the threats seriously, which they obviously did with the increased security and the partial lockdown that they did. A quick note on the social networking sites, it is an increasing phenomena with the possibility of threats and rumors going out on there. But there are very few, and I'm not aware of any where there was actually a threat that did follow through from the social networking site. So that's a brief overview, and I'd be glad to try and answer any questions you have.
Did you guys play any part in the response to this, or was it more just offering any help if need be?
No, that's why I say it was reassuring, because we did call to see if they needed any assistance, but they have a very well-prepared plan, and it highlights the need for planning and drills beforehand, which they have done very well. So like I say, they had a process set that they already practiced, and they just put it in motion. And you look at the turnaround time from when they first got the threat to when they started, it's a very impressive job they did today.
How serious was the threat?
I don't know the specifics of the threat. It's listed as vague, but they say it's a threat of violence. What they said was a school shooting. They didn't know which school, so you have to treat that seriously. I mean, you look at the number of school shootings that have occurred across the country, over the last 10 years, it's something you have to be very concerned about, and they did take it very seriously.
Can you talk a little bit about the progression of how schools have learned to deal with this? I was talking to someone earlier today who said that 5 years ago they might have sent everybody home, but they're learning to kind of keep the school day going and assess the threats better.
I'll go back to my initial statement was reassuring that it's just what they did. They maintained the safe learning environment, increased the access control, increased the security there, and did not shut the whole school down, like you say, which at one time would do that. In fact, that's the impetus that for the Minnesota School Safety Center in 2007, that was established as a Department of Public Safety division in response to some of the school shootings nationwide and even in this state to better prepare schools to deal with situations like this. And if you look at it, I think it worked very well today.
When something like this does happen, does it increase the likelihood that it might happen in other districts around Minnesota because people hear about it and it's be all over the news and it?
That is a very big concern, especially with the age you're talking, high schoolers and others, but the copycat phenomena. They see that, they see what happens. If you want to shut your school down, if they had done that, here is a way to do it. So that is a very big concern, yes. How do you make sure that this doesn't plant the seed elsewhere? And that's a tough challenge.
Does it make it easier because of these social networking sites to do that?
Yes, I say obviously the digital world, it's a whole new set of challenges that are increasingly difficult. And look at this one, even trying to investigate it, coming from a law enforcement background, are you going to be able to determine where that site was and find out who sent the first threats out?
You said you're not aware of any similar threats posted on a social networking site that resulted in an actual attack. Is this now fairly common in other places in the country where there's either an email or a threat on some site and possibly originating overseas or something? Is this something you're seeing in other states around the country?
It's relatively, we don't have enough information at that time, but if you look at it in the state, there was a couple in Minnesota, Farmington and Simley High School in Inver Grove Heights, where it was started in social networking sites. And that's the tough part also, is rumor control. With the instant access anybody has basically worldwide, how do you control and how do you investigate that is one of the challenges.
You said that staying in school was a good decision.
Yes.
Explain at what point that it would make sense to send the children home, and what's the sort of the dividing line there?
Well, that's the job of the threat assessment team, the law enforcement, the school administrators, anybody involved who may have some relevant information to take each individual threat, take a look at it and do the best you can with the information you have available and develop your action plan off there. So there is no set formula, here's when you do it. That's a difficult challenge for, like I say, law enforcement and the school administrators, because you're dealing with the safety of the children.
Do you think staying in school sends sort of a, I don't know, philosophical message in a sense to say that these threats are not, you know, what they used to be and necessarily, and we're not going to sort of cave to it and life will go on?
I would agree with that, is that by staying in school, you reduce the chances that these are going to be copycatted. The school will go on, we can do this, there will be more cops here, there will be more security, but you are going to go through with your days. So I think that was a very good move, and it does send the proper message. From a statistical basis, schools are a very, very safe environment. You're safer there than most other places, so if you can keep the kids in the schools, it is a big step forward to keeping them safe.
Have you ever heard of a threat that has had such a widespread impact, like an entire urban district, you know, big school district?
This is the first I'm aware of, but I'm relatively new in the position, so it is possible it's something out there. But I say 34,000 students, you can look at the impact, an anonymous message posted on a social networking site. It's a real challenge.
How often do you receive threats like this? Maybe how many times?
The School Safety Center, we don't receive threats like this. So we get information passed on and we try and track them, but I don't have a number for you.
This was called Code Yellow, I believe, in Minneapolis?
That's the term they've used, yes.
Do you know where they determine what is yellow, what is orange, what is red, that sort of thing?
I don't know their terms, but in your planning, you do have a variety of options in there, and then you fit your response to what the threat that you receive. So it may vary from school district, but that's one of the things we try and instruct at the Minnesota School Safety Center, is adapt your plan to your needs, to your facility, to the people you have, and then work with it that way. And obviously that's what they've done here. They've come up with their own terminology, and they say it worked very well today.
To follow up to this, forgive me if you already covered this, you're just going to assist in this investigation, or are you going to take it over from Minneapolis?
No, we are not going to take it over. It's, they say they're the largest school district, and the Minneapolis Police Department, the resources they have. We are a resource to assist mainly in planning and getting ready for this. They're in charge of this, and we will not be taking over anywhere close to that.
Are you going to do anything for tomorrow?
Contact them, see if there's anything, and we have established relationships. That's one of our jobs, is out there with schools, law enforcement. Is there anything we can do?
It turns out that these threats did come from the same place. In your experience, is there anything that jumped out at you for why there would be a connection between Durham Hall and Minneapolis School?
I don't know enough about these specific threats. That's still under investigation, so I don't want to go that direction. But my guess is, and they're obviously in contact with each other. It's the same day, time, and similar format, I believe. So is there a relationship? And that's something they'll determine through their investigation.